Welcome to the 2010 Sound Horse Conference, held this year in Louisville, Kentucky. The Sound Horse Conference's purpose is to end soring. Soring is the illegal and cruel practice of using chemical and mechanical methods to create pain in a gaited show horse's front feet to exaggerate their animated step. The practice is most prevalent in Tennessee walking horses. The conference is an annual event intending to encourage actions and educate stakeholders and the public on the issues surrounding the efforts to end soring. The conference includes presentations by a distinguished panel of veterinarians, trainers, government enforcement leaders, attorneys, professors, Humane Association professionals, and individual volunteers and horse people. Topics include current soring observations, cultural objections to the practices, technologies and methods for enforcement, and current initiatives in progress to end this practice. We're pleased to present for you highlights from this most recent Sound Horse Conference.
The purpose of the Sound Horse Conference is pretty simple in words, and everyone in this room agrees with this purpose. It's to bring an end to the abuse of soring. How can we do that? We think the way to do it is by focusing on 3 areas, and these are the 3 areas you're going to see repeated and highlighted throughout the conference. 1, public awareness and positive peer pressure. This would include press coverage of soring, access of information on violators, sharing good examples of sound training and sound competitions. That's public awareness and positive peer pressure. The second is going to be by changing judging standards. You're going to see good examples from other equine disciplines. You're going to understand why groups of current judges reward the sore horse. We're going to see how we can get decision makers to change those standards for shows. Changing the judging standards is the second way. And the third way, not in any particular order, is stronger enforcement. You're going to hear about enforcement through the USDA, through federal and state laws, through more effective detection by inspectors, and through technology that can improve detection. In preparing for this conference, I reread an email that I received in 2003. I don't save all my emails, but I saved this one. This is from the author of a book that we happen to have for sale out at our retail table. And the book is called From the Horse's Mouth. The author wrote the book under a pseudonym because he was afraid of retribution. I read the book, not knowing anything about anything, and it changed my life. So I hope that this conference can be a progress step in the way of a general public uproar to get things done, and we're all here about the horse. And now I'd like to introduce this year's Master of Ceremonies, Rick Lamb. Please join me in welcoming Rick Lamb to the Sound Horse Conference.
All right. Thank you so much, Lori. Well, it is great to be here. It's great to see so many people that care this much about the welfare of the horse getting out bright and early on this cool morning in Louisville. It's odd for me to be back here so quickly. I was just in Lexington for close to a month with the World Equestrian Games, so it's really a pleasure to be back here. As Lori said, we have a very tight schedule for this weekend. She has packed an awful lot of great material and great speakers, great ideas, great food for thought, great inspiration into this weekend. Thus, we have to stay on our schedule, and that's my job to kind of crack the whip and make sure we do stay to that. So we're going to be following the schedule that's in your programs. I hope you've had a chance to take a look at the program. It's a beautiful piece of work, a lot of good material there, and I do advise you to take a look at that. With us today is Dr. Rachel Cesar. She's responsible for enforcing the Horse Protection Act. Many of you know Dr. Cesar from this role. She received her DVM degree from Michigan State University in 2002 and then fulfilled a fellowship in Lexington, Kentucky, and an internship in the United Arab Emirates at the Dubai Equine Hospital. Dr. Cesar also serves in the Air National Guard as a public health officer. Dr. Cesar? Dr. Thomas Tobin was educated in Ireland and Canada, established the Equine Pharmacology, Therapeutics, and Toxicology program at the University of Kentucky, and he's a world leader in equine toxicology. Dr. Tobin is renowned for national drug testing programs, new treatments for major equine diseases, international workshops, writing textbooks, and actually testifying before Congress. Now, more recently, his work was focused on developing validated analytical methods and highly sensitive tests for agents abused in racing horses. We are honored to have Dr. Tobin join us today to focus on the possibilities of equine toxicology applied to the soring of Tennessee walking horses. Now, Stephen Phillips was our third panelist. He could not be here today due to health reasons, but he's prepared a video presentation for us today. Stephen will help us understand how a proven technology used in many other industries and enforcement situations could be used for the first time in the detection of soring.
USDA works actively with the horse industry to protect against abuse and working to ensure that only sound and healthy horses participate in shows, sales, exhibitions, and auctions. Our ultimate goal is to end the inhumane practice of soring completely. The plan for next year is to approximately hit 100 events and have oversight at those many.
I think I made it pretty clear on the conference call when we talked about the horse protection audit that those HIOs who think they have an option about accepting what's in the audit, accepting the penalty charge, that's fine. They can exercise that option if they want. But I can assure you it has been made clear to me and clear to the attorneys there is an expectation for those HIOs who do not follow the rules, they will be decertified. That's all we need for them not to adopt the penalty charge, and they will be decertified. I have that assurance from the people who support this. That document was signed, those commitments were made to OIG, and we are not backing down from those. In that process, we do have a regulatory process we go through for those recommendations, which will get input from the public, but it will not change the intent of those regulations.
Actually, we are going to start this coming year on the random drug testing, and actually some of the additional staff that we're hiring for the horse protection program are veterinarians that already are certified with USCF in drug testing. So that's a great benefit as well, because then we can utilize them to perform the testing at the horse shows. So hopefully we can get working on this pretty quickly this year, and then if we see that there is a conjunction of a lot of medications being utilized with soring or for soring, then we're hopefully being pushing forward on a penalty protocol or different types of protocols, as well as how the USCF and FEI has right now.
I'm Steve Phillips. I'm a professional dog trainer. This is my dog Persia. Persia is a detection dog, and she is a narcotics detection dog. Some of the other different kinds of detection dogs that I train are explosive detection dogs, dogs that are human remains detection dogs, cadaver dogs. We also do seizure detection dogs. Talk a little bit about how a detection dog could be trained to help out with finding the substances that are used in soring.
In this session, we're going to get a little bit of a taste of the training methods, the sound training philosophies behind them that are going to be evidenced tonight in the special performance that we will see that is called the Balancing Act. Let me tell you a little bit about our presenters today. First of all, Sue DeLaurentis and Alan Pogue come to us from Texas. They developed Imagine a Horse by blending modern and classical horsemanship into a fun and comprehensive training program designed to increase the intelligence, adaptability, and predictability of today's companion horse. Their Enlightened Trick Horse training focuses on an interactive relationship between horse and handler while instilling willing obedience and cooperation that can be utilized in any discipline. Sue is also known for her development of the famous Tennessee walking horse mare, Lady C, previously owned by Sheryl Crow. Next up on our agenda today is Buddy Brewer. He's from Greenback, Tennessee, and he's owned and trained and shown sound, flat-shod Tennessee walking horses for many years. His accomplishments in the show ring include national, North American, international, and world championship titles. He's also certified as a trainer and coach by the Irwin Institute for Equestrian Arts. Buddy's training philosophy revolves around the soundness and well-being of the whole horse, physically, mentally, and emotionally. Buddy shows how creating a better partnership both on the ground and in the saddle creates a better performance. And finally, today we'll have Larry Weitzel presenting. He's a renowned gaited horseman since about 1980. Larry has been very successful in the show ring, winning regional, national, and grand national championships. In 2002, he was the Professional Paso Fino Trainers Association Trainer of the Year. He has also held judges' cards in several gaited breeds. Initially, Larry trained under the traditional gaited horse methods, thinking that these were the only way to yield gait. As his training progressed, he wanted to train gaited horses to a higher level so they would gait for any level rider, and riders could count on them to be safe and dependable. Larry will share with us how he learned that some of the training myths attached to the gaited world are not in the best interest of the horse.
Okay, pedestal training. There's one of our horses there. And why do we use pedestal training? Why do we do it? Because it helps develop the physical dexterity of the horse, self-confidence, controlled boldness, and a sense of security.
When we were doing articles for the Voice magazine, we never, ever have got a bigger response from the horse world than we did the walking horse people. Imagine Horse has been featured in articles in 13 different countries, but when we had articles in the Voice, we were absolutely besieged with everyday owners that wanted something else to do with these horses, something that was sane, that was useful, and the people that run these show administrations are missing the point. You know, it's all about the bottom line, the almighty dollar, and they don't realize that the people that got the most dollars are all those people that have the horses at home and want something that's sane and safe and sound to do with these guys, and it's not always just the stuff in a show ring.
Different ways of going. So what is the difference in the way that they're going? The one on your left is not okay. He's an emotional and mental wreck. The one on your right is emotionally and mentally okay. He's stable, all right? He knows his place. He knows what's going on. Look at the difference in the silhouette of the horse. What do you see? The one on the left is inverted, head up, back hollow, short stride, mouth gaped open. It's the same horse on the right a couple of years later. Longer stride, head down, back round, mouth shut. Not a piston front end, but a reaching front end with a heavy stride behind.
All right, thank you, buddy. A couple great presentations. Pressure's on you. Larry Weitzel, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, I'm supposed to, I think, talk about what I'm going to do tonight. And I train horses classically. Training classical doesn't mean that you have to take your horse to the level of the Spanish riding school. They don't have to do Levade or Capriole. However, I like to take my horses pretty far, but I'm predominantly a trail rider. So classical training means that I train my horse in a way that it benefits my horse. For the most part, as soon as a gaited horse is broke, someone starts trying to help that horse gait. Gaited horse people are obsessed with getting their horses to gait. Most emotional issues in horses are created from balance. We all say that we understand that horses are prey animals, so their feet are their livelihood. Do you understand that every time you turn your horse left and right, if you take him out of balance, you put your horse in a state of anxiety? And at my farm, we never make a gaited horse gait. We teach balance, relaxation. We show the horse how to use his body correctly, his muscles correctly. We've never had a gaited horse that didn't offer just throw gait. Gait was like a fringe benefit to us for treating him correctly.
All right, speaking today will be three people sharing vastly different examples of the type of second career opportunities that exist for gaited show horses. Gene Webb trains dogs and horses for field trials. Leslie Desmond teaches people around the world to use the horse's own language. And Keith Kibler is an up-and-coming endurance rider.
This is me training a horse to be on a tie-out next to the trailer. It's right outside my living room door. This is me working with that horse with strange things going on, hats and stuff being put on him. This is a field trial. You see the horses are around each other. There's the person with the orange is a bird bag.
The horses in transition that you see here come obviously in all shapes and sizes, all conditions. Over 20 breeds were represented in this pen that I passed by near Amarillo off the freeway last fall. Although the mares that you see here haven't missed a meal recently, many of them, a few rows in, were not in such good shape. And this included a number of gaited horses. There were foxtrotters and some passos in there, and a Tennessee walker or two. It was quite a mixed group.
5 Tennessee Walker BCs, which is Best of Condition Award, which is the top award. If you can come in 5th and get BC versus 1st, you want 5th and BC. BC means your horse has been designated as the best trained, best conditioned, best horse. There's been 5 of those in the world, and our horses, by God's grace, in the last 5 years have been 4 of those 5.
We are very pleased to have some special guests with us this afternoon. You'll be hearing from them. First of all, let me introduce to you Senator Joseph Tidings. He is known as the father of the Horse Protection Act. Senator Tidings is a senior counsel at the law firm of Dick Stein Shapiro LLP. In addition to a successful law practice, he has had an active career in elective, appointed, and voluntary public service, from serving in the last Horse Cavalry Unit of the U.S. Army in World War II to 3 years as United States Attorney for Maryland, appointed by President John F. Kennedy. And also 6 years in the United States Senate. After 3 years of intense effort, Senator Tidings' Horse Protection Act was enacted and signed into law in 1970. Now, 40 years later, Senator Tidings is still actively working to bring an end to the soaring abuses of Tennessee walking horses. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Senator Joseph Tidings.
Thank all of you for being here and supporting this cause, because the word does get back. And a couple of words to the Tennessee walking horse present show managers and exhibitors and our owners who are moving forward, who are determined to help us in retaining a great Southern culture and tradition, the Tennessee walking horses, and to returning it to honest, uncorrupted, unconflicted show managers and people. We thank you. One word to those of you who are active in the show business. It would be a great help to Dr. Gibson if he and his department were to have word of the Wildcat shows. There are about over 450 Wildcat shows in Tennessee, in Kentucky, and around this past year.
You've also created too many animals. Like in thoroughbred racing, if we retired a stallion, we sold 40 shares. That was 40 mares. Today, you retire, you have 150 mares that come to the stallion, and then you send them to the southern hemisphere. So he's making 300 babies a year when it used to be 40. So now we're down to the last 90,000, and because of my husband, we got slaughter stopped in Illinois and in Texas. Okay, they're now taking them down to Mexico. So know this, those horses that you ride, that you get a ribbon with and you say I love, unless he stays in your backyard until the day he dies, he goes to slaughter.
A variety of devious and cruel methods have been developed, and insiders say the use of pressure soaring, which is also known as pressure shoeing, has been on the rise in recent years, as it can be more difficult to detect than chemical soaring, which we talked about this morning. And we have 4 presenters in this particular panel. I'll introduce the first one for you here, and then each one in turn when they come up. Mark Matson is going to speak from the analytical perspective. Mark and his wife Deborah both grew up around horses and have been involved with showing Tennessee walking horses for 20 years. Seeing the corruption and soaring in the industry, they became charter members of NWHA, and Mark served on its board for NWHA's first 5 years. More recently, he served as a technical advisor to Donna Benefield and HPC and became involved with the International Walking Horse Association, representing them in HIO matters. Now, IWHA became more active in 2010 with Mark as the DQP coordinator. IWHA has inspected shows throughout 2010. IWHA was selected by the Kentucky Breeders' Incentive Fund as the only HIO approved to inspect padded horses. He is chair of the HIO Working Group Pressure Shoeing Ad Hoc Committee. Mark's horse experience, coupled with his work in the oil industry, especially on key committees reviewing test data and the statistical analyses, provides a unique skill set in dealing with the quality control aspects of inspections and HPA compliance. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mark Matson.
With pressure soaring, the evidence is removed prior to the show or inspection. These would include things that we call bolting, where a plate that's been drilled and tapped and then a bolt run through it, slipped up inside the shoe, and then the bolt is driven up into the sole of the foot. Standing a horse on blocks. These are specially made blocks that the horse is stood on. Sometimes duct taped, most often duct taped to the foot in order to apply pressure to the sole. Abuse of hoof bands, and here again we're talking about hoof bands. Overly tight, sometimes objects have been placed under the bands. Here recently, believe it or not, we examined a horse where the band on one foot concealed a hole that had been drilled right through the front of the hoof wall.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Neil Volk.
But the thing that struck me about the gaited horse industry when I became familiar with it is the widespread acceptance, almost universal acceptance of soaring as a method of training horses. When we talk about pain, which is what soaring is all about, we're talking about deliberately induced pain, and yet we know that pain is a natural process. Pain is a protective mechanism. And something that I discovered early on in dealing with gaited horse people is a very common, actually a very common comment that soaring doesn't hurt the horse. And I've heard that so many times. Trainer will say, well, mustard oil doesn't hurt a horse. A little bit of pressure, it doesn't hurt a horse. And I'm thinking to myself, well, of course it hurts the horse, that's why you're doing it. If it didn't hurt the horse, you wouldn't do it. But I began to understand that when a trainer says something doesn't hurt a horse, he's not saying it doesn't cause pain. What he's saying is it doesn't cause permanent injury or disfigurement. I am rarely asked to look at a front-end problem in a gaited horse. 99% of the time, if I'm doing a lameness workup on a gaited horse, it's in the hind end, something in the back end. The front feet, usually that's something that's managed by the farrier, with the farrier. The front end of the horse, particularly the feet, that's the domain of the farrier. Again, I'm almost never asked to evaluate a horse's front end. If the horse is not level, if the horse is perceived to be lame, he's taken to the farrier, and the farrier adjusts the shoeing or they adjust the soaring or whatever and try to even the horse up that way. I scratch my head, turn to the trainer and say, maybe I'm an idiot, I'm sorry, but I don't see anything wrong with this horse. And they'll look at me and say, well, he only does it when he's under pressure, or he only does it when he's in a bind. And both those phrases mean he only does it when he's sore, which brings up a concept that's called the peak point in a gaited horse. These horses generally are sored early in the week in anticipation of a show coming Friday or the coming weekend. And they get sore, they get sore, they get sore, they get sore, and then they eventually kind of bottom out, which ironically is called their peak point. And then they sound out so that they can pass inspection when they go to the show. When a horse reaches its peak point, he's utilizing his rear end to his maximum ability. And if he has a kind of a subtle or nebulous problem behind, that's when you're most likely to see it. Naturally occurring pathology is a performance enhancer. I was in a walking horse barn several years ago and the trainer said, oh, while you're here, can you inject the hocks on one of the horses? And I said, yeah, sure. It was an old campaigner that had arthritis in his hocks, had been injected before and responded very nicely. When he led the horse up to me, he was just absolutely crippled. This horse was profoundly sore in front. And I looked at the trainer and I said, when did you fix him? And he said, well, I haven't done anything to this horse. I said, well, he looks really sore. And he said, oh, yeah, he's foundered, Doc. Been that way for years. And I said, you want me to inject this horse's hocks? He said, yeah. I said, well, surely you're not going to work him this way. He said, work him? Well, I got a show this weekend. And I said, well, how can you show this horse? And he said, Doc, this is the best horse in the barn. I don't have to do anything to get him ready. He's always show ready. Then the third option is to compromise. Don't ask, don't tell. I'll pretend your horses aren't sore if you pretend you're not soring them.
Thank you very much, Dr. Volk. All right, our next speaker is Jim Crew. He's going to talk about all of this from the farrier's perspective.
What I want to do is to let people know that there is life after soring. And they can learn to do this completely sound if we absolutely support them. Now, they have to stop. There's no doubt about it. They have to stop. So he walks down here and watches me get this horse ready, you know. Put the little ladder there, and Miss Mickey climbs up on it, gets on the horse. And I told her, I said, walk him down through there, loose rein. When I tell you to, just raise your reins up, sit back in the saddle, and come up through there. And just as you get to me, cluck to him pretty loud, you know. And she does that, and about that time, he just sort of falls back a little bit and starts stepping up, comes in the ring, and makes a great show, And he asked me, the federal inspector asked me, he said, how did you get him to do that? You know, said it cost $35 to get him to do that, you know. Well, I walked off and didn't think anything else about it. I ran into him at Montgomery, the Southern Championship show, and he sort of grabbed me by the arm and he said, I don't know what that $35 was you was talking about. Like, scared me to death. I said, oh, you go buy a brand new pair of Levi's and wear them out in that saddle. You won't have to sore him, you know.
How can we fix the industry? I don't have a clue. All right? That's as honest as I can be. I'm hoping I can present a few of the puzzle pieces and someone wiser than me can use them for the benefit in a positive manner. And intentional pressure soring has to end. Now, under the new protocol, that horse can be sent home for the day. He can be sent home for the rest of the show. He can be sent back to the trailer. But to do a suspension to put the end of that the end of that practice, you have to prove the intent. Oh, that one got left in there. So now we get to who done it. Again, with chemical soring, if your name's on the show sheet, you done it. Tag, you're it. You're going to a hearing. With pressure shoeing, much like Mark talked about before, suspension can be administered. The cause of the hoof lameness must be determined. Is the horse sore because the horse is intentionally pressure sore, the farrier was careless, the horse has lameness issue beyond the control of the trainer? To think that a person can intentionally inflict the same amount of pain to both hooves to cause a horse to travel evenly with its front end or hind, from the farrier's point of view, to me is an art form.
It would seem to me that as medical practitioners or federal agents that are charged with protecting the horse, that we shouldn't be offering the option of going back to the barn and allowing the horse to continue to remain in pain. We should be removing that shoe or package, whether we believe we can find the cause or not, and getting that horse some immediate relief. My question for Dr. Cesar is, or Dr. Gibson, either one, if in fact you guys are taking over the licensing and training of DQPs as your response to the OIG audit report suggested you are, do you intend to incorporate mandatory hoof testing training into the training program for DQPs and or mandatory use of hoof testing in the inspection protocol?
To answer your question about the not normal thermographies is that hoof imbalances cause a lot of not normals, and I will show you in other breeds that those not normals, they're not normal, but they're also not necessarily painful pathology. So just because you have a change in the pattern that makes you not normal doesn't make it a federal crime. And so you can't, there's not enough people at any of these shows that I've ever been at that you could do all those and do everything. Most of these horses go on through inspection anyway, and they'll be tested.
So for this session, we're going to learn how the impacts of soring as a cruel and illegal practice affect business strategies, a community's culture, professionals, and their licenses. While the effects of soring are usually focused on the horses suffering the abuse, these wide-ranging panelists will open your eyes as to the effects of soring on people and their health and well-being. We're going to feature Dr. Bruce Knock. Dr. Midge Leach, and we had scheduled David Thomas. He could not be here this time, so we'll have our two presenters, our two docs here. Let me tell you just a little bit about Dr. Bruce Knock. He is an avid horseman, a dressage and trail rider, and dressage instructor. He is the author of the acclaimed book, 10 Golden Rules of Horse Training, the newly released book, Ride for Tomorrow, Dressage Today, and a highly regarded series of articles entitled The Biology of Natural Horsemanship. Bruce also possesses an in-depth knowledge about animal behavior, learning theory, and stress physiology that is unsurpassed in the equine industry. All right, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Bruce Knock.
I'm going to tell you about how it affects the owners and the trainers who do it. They might be paying a bigger penalty than you might think. It's a price they certainly aren't aware of, because if they understood what soaring horses was doing to them, I have to believe they wouldn't be doing it. Epigenetic effects, they can last a lifetime. But here's the weird thing. Some epigenetic effects now appear to be inheritable. They're passed on from one generation to another to another. That means things your parents, grandparents, and even more distant relatives did or were exposed to during their lives may be affecting the expression of some of your genes, having biological effects that may be increasing or decreasing your susceptibility to diseases or disorders, affecting your behavior or your ability to cope with stress. Instead, my advice is to do everything within your power to eliminate all of the sources of unnecessary stress from your life. Stress is truly a silent killer that sucks the joy out of your life along the way.
Dr. Midge Leach received the American Association of Equine Practitioners President's Award in 2008. Dr. Leach is a radiologist at the New Bolton Center at the University of Pennsylvania School of Veterinary Medicine and is a diplomat with the American College of Veterinary Surgeons. Dr. Leach chaired the AAEP's Tennessee Walking Horse Task Force, which developed the white paper on the subject of soaring in 2008 and the pressure shoeing detection protocol in 2009. So let's hear it for Dr. Midge Leach, please.
I think pretty much any veterinarian or any farrier, as we heard today, pretty much anybody who's associated with high-level performance horses, be it a farrier, a veterinarian, an owner, a trainer, a rider, a groom, suffers from time to time with that conflict between what is in the best interest of the horse and getting that horse to the ring or getting that horse to perform as well as it can. We all decide where to draw the line in the sand, but that line is real for all of us, and anyone who has who suggests that that conflict doesn't exist for them is probably not being forthright. The best way to avoid that conflict is, as our last speaker has pointed out, to remove all those stresses from your life, and I would suggest that everyone take that advice. The best way for veterinarians and farriers and trainers is probably to select working with horses who don't perform at higher levels, because therefore the stress to get them to the ring is diminished. I think there is hope. I think that the best way is for this industry to go forward is for the competitions to group together and to regulate themselves. Self-regulation always will work better than having an outside party try to impose improvement upon you. And it's certainly clear that if you're going to bring drug testing and things like that into standard practice, that it's going to have to be subsidized by the competitors and the competitions themselves.
Horses' age and developmental needs with their owner's exhibition, training, and gait goals. We've been hearing leadership. Thank you, Frank, and whoa.
Go.
just tricks. Master trick trainer Sue.
We always say that whip is a noun, not a verb, okay? Because a lot of times I have to touch my horse. I don't want him to be afraid of the whip, which he's not. I want to be able to touch him, but not sting him and make him mad at me or make him not want to work. So I can touch him with a little whip like this if I want to touch him, and it's not the end of the world. Step up. We do almost all of our work at Liberty for a lot of reasons. Step up. Now, I want to show you something. And we do use cookies. Cookie time, buddy. You know how we always under saddle seek for collection, and we want to do exercises that encourage the horse to lift the back, use the belly muscles. Take a look at this. Okay. It's a good beginning. Okay. The pedestal is a happy place for him to be. Occasionally he'll get a cookie. Gets petted and stroked. Turn. Walk on. Very good. It's because when she visited our ranch, she was really impressed by the close relationship that we have with all of our horses. We've got about 12 of our own horses at home. They're all trick horses because they make our living, but they're also our saddle horses. So when we travel, which we don't very often do, to do an expo, they ride in the mountains, they do everything that we need them to do. Honey, you're going to have to help me and remind me what card we're on. Okay, so we're going to run through the category of tricks with Lady. Lady. Oh, no, we don't want to do that yet. Very good. I would like you to cross. Good. And walk. And cross.
She wouldn't walk. She spooks at everything. So you might think she has all these problems, but really she doesn't have all these problems just like that horse did. They have one problem. They don't understand how the bridle works, and they defend themselves all the time. This horse was brought to me at an expo. I brought her out in front of a crowd like this, and she wouldn't allow me to get on her. So I couldn't even use her at that time. So we've done as much as we can with her in 6 weeks. I'll have her for quite a few months. But here's the problem with horses like these. So what Jill's working on right there, she's doing a little shoulder in on the ground. I'm going to tell you why we do that. I'm doing a little shoulder in with this horse just to relax her. Doing shoulder in makes her relax through her body by getting in balance, which we'll talk about. I'm asking this horse to step deep underneath herself with her left hind leg up into the bridle. And I've been told you can't train gaited horses to gait in the snaffle, but you can if you teach them to respect your hands and the bit or the bridle and round their back and go softly up into the bridle. So she runs away, she spooks, and she won't gait. So I've never worked on walk with her. The only thing that I've done is teach this horse to get all of the tension out of her neck, relax her neck, step underneath with a hind end, and balance herself, and allow me to guide her. So I spend lots of time working on the guide.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Buddy Brewer and Diane Sept will present now Building a Better Gait from the Ground Up. Buddy Brewer is from Greenback, Tennessee, and has owned, trained, and shown sound, flat-shod Tennessee walking horses for many years. His accomplishments in the show ring include national, North American, international, and world championship titles. He is also certified as a trainer and coach by the Irwin Institute for Equestrian Arts. Buddy's training philosophy revolves around the soundness and well-being of the entire whole horse, physically, mentally, and emotionally. Joining Buddy tonight will be Diane Sept. Diane was first introduced to the Tennessee walking horse in 1967. Since that time, she has enjoyed a wide variety of experiences with Tennessee walking horses and other smooth-gaited breeds, as well as the trotting breeds. Cattle work, dressage, gymkhana, competitive trail riding, pleasure riding, and the show ring. Several of Diane's horses and her students' horses have won national versatility titles. Diane has held a license with the Independent Judges Association since 1998, is a senior IJA judge, dressage judge, and a connected riding senior instructor. She owns Back to Basics Equine Awareness in Denver, Pennsylvania. An international clinician herself, she will always be a student of the horse and of those knowledgeable in the well-being of the horse from an emotional, mental, and physical standpoint. She believes we must know and understand why a horse reacts or responds to allow the horse to accept us as a trusted partner. Ladies and gentlemen, Buddy Brewer and Diane Sept.
So as we move out with our horse, we have alignment of the spinal column. The same thing that's going on in hand. We have contact. We have forward, timing, to ride just like Larry was talking about, to make your horse move in balance. A walking horse has to be loose to shake. Miss Diane, if you would come back, please.
Just a couple things I'd like to show you that we can do to make a big difference in how our horse goes for us, because it makes it easier for them. It's more fair. We have 3 postures that we humans can take when we are, well, whether we're on a horse or not, whether just even standing still. Jamie, I'd like to go over here a little further. Those postures are, and you know them all, the inverted posture, pretty, or the slumped posture, pocket sitter, what? Or what we call neutral pelvis. So what I'm going to suggest to you, if you want to have some fun, you go home to ride your horse, put your saddle on, make sure that your saddle sits level. By the way, first of all, your saddle needs to sit level on your horse, or you're working too hard, and that's no fun. And then you can actually do this. He says, knock it off, Diane. Actually really invert. And you may find, some of you ladies may find you can't invert anymore. You're already inverting. Or try, and then try really slumping, and actually watch how your horse responds. And then come up to the middle place between those two. That's neutral pelvis. And when we're in neutral pelvis, it's, Sue talked about that when she had ladies sitting on the beanbag, and she commented on how that rounded ladies' hips, because that's how they move the best, and that's how we can move with our horse when we let ourselves be a neutral pelvis. The next thing that you might have a lot of fun with, and this is amazing, ladies and gentlemen, it really is. Find out how you're reining your horse. And I want you to catch yourself and try and absolutely throw away the idea of pulling or pulling down. And what you're going to find is if you can get yourself to catch yourself, just let your arms be here in front of you. The less we bring our bodies out of whack, as soon as we bring a hand out here, guess what? We have to lean. And I think Larry might have commented on the out of balance type of thing. If we bring our hand out here to lead the horse somewhere, I don't care. We are going to get somewhat out of balance. The horse has to make up for that, and they do. But if instead you can find yourself, come on, buddy, just lift into the corner of your horse's mouth. Just lift. And just lift. They will get so light. They will get so light. And if you don't get the response you're maybe looking for immediately, maybe all you need to do is to shorten your rein a little bit. Bend your elbow and lift. And lift and touch the corner of the horse's mouth. Lift and touch the corner of the mouth. They will become absolute power steering. It's incredible, and they all do it. This isn't, you know, that's not even a matter of training. That's just the way they're wired. I tell you, it's just the way they're wired. Come on, Jamie. Are you ready to bring socks up? Okay. To be able to come up in the front end, in their shoulder girdle and wither area, they have to be able to coil their abdominal muscles and butt muscles under to carry that front end up. It's strength. It is a strength. If a horse is able to develop the confidence and the strength to do this without a rider, it makes them be able to do this so much more securely, so much more confidently once the rider gets in the saddle.
Now, Buddy is riding Socks, whose registered name is Dashing Knight. His grandsire was the legendary Ebony Masterpiece. He is an 18-year-old Tennessee walking horse gelding, also owned by Buddy and Jenny Brewer of Greenback, Tennessee. Best known for winning many championships in the English, light shod, and trail pleasure divisions. Buddy and this horse mesmerized spectators with their outstanding show ring performances. Dashing Knight is featured on the Foch video Best of the Best, where he exemplifies the epitome of correctness in executing the famous running walk of the Tennessee walking horse. Buddy says he has the biggest heart and always gives everything he has. His spirit is forever a part of my soul. Tonight, Buddy rides Dashing Knight in his final public exhibition under saddle.
And now we just ask you to enjoy. How many of you like to see a walking horse nod its head and flop its ears? Is there anything better in the whole wide world? He says, and how about that kind of stuff, Diane? That's pretty cool too, isn't it?
Okay, on our panel this morning, we will have Diane Little and Chris Messick and Dr. Jim Hurd. Let me tell you just a little bit about Diane Little, who's going to go first here. She has served as Vice President of Foch and Director of Judges for Foch's Independent Judges Association since 2003. She's a native of Calgary, Canada. She also holds director positions on the Alberta Walking Horse Association, the Canadian Registry of the Tennessee Walking Horse, the Alberta Equestrian Federation, and Foch. She believes the foundation of a judging program is philosophy, ethics, and values. Please welcome Diane Little.
Fact. Few people read the rules. Fewer people understand the rules. What judges reward does become the standard. Perception is reality. Back to the topic. If a single judge stopped rewarding the way of going of a sword horse today, I do not believe anything would change except that the judge would not be hired again. If 2 judges stopped rewarding the way of going of a sword horse today, I do not believe anything would change except 2 judges would not be hired. If 30 judges stopped rewarding the way of going of a sword horse, things would change. Change must be substantive and not window dressing. The future of our horse rests in the balance of people like you and me trying to make a difference. What we do with our horses is often a reflection of where we are in our lives. What we do as judges is a reflection of our philosophy, values, and ethics.
Thank you very much, Diane. All right, next up this morning is Chris Messick. He was introduced to Tennessee Walkers by his father, Lonnie Messick. As a child, he showed halter and pleasure horses and then followed in his father's footsteps and became a DQP for the National Horse Show Commission in 1986. He became a full-time trainer in 1994 and worked with horses that became Sire of the Year, Reserve World Grand Champion, and multiple world champions. In 1995, he became a licensed judge with the National Horse Show Commission, judging shows from Florida to Washington State and from Virginia to California, including Woodbury, Belfast Trainers Show, and the International Championships 5 times. In fact, every time he was on the ballot to judge the International Championships, he was selected by the exhibitors. Chris served 2 terms on the board of directors for the Walking Horse Owners Association as a BA in education and is now teaching mathematics on the West Coast, so we appreciate him traveling so far to be with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Messick.
I'm honored to be here today. As my bio said, I'm now a mathematics teacher, and the thing that made me take a step back and really look at the industry was some of the kids that I taught were interested in what I used to do, and that was train horses. So I brought a video of the celebration championship class, I believe it was 1994, and showed to a group of middle school special ed kids. And as they were watching the tape, they kept asking me, what's wrong with those horses? What's wrong with those horses? So if an 8th grade kid can see that there's something wrong, then maybe I should take a step back and look. So that really opened my eyes. But this picture was taken at a horse show this year, this spring. Not only did it show, but I was told this horse won the class. So we still have problems. We've come a long way, but we have a long way to go. Set standards, train the judges to these standards, enforce those standards. If they continue to reward horses that aren't the proper image, then get rid of them. You do this a couple of times, and they'll all start judging the way you want, or the way they should, I should say, the way they should.
All right, Dr. Jim Hurd is Executive Professor and Coordinator of the Equine Sciences Initiative at Texas A&M University. Prior to this position, he was Director of Teaching and Outreach for the Equine Sciences Program at Colorado State University. He graduated with a BS in Animal Husbandry and an MS in Animal Genetics from the University of Tennessee. His doctorate is in Animal Behavior from Texas Tech University. Dr. Hurd has an international reputation in the field of equine sciences. He's received numerous honors, including the USDA's Honor Award and the Outstanding Leadership Award from the National Horse Judging Team Coaches Association. In 2009, he was named Horseman of the Year by the Colorado Horse Council. He has trained world champion youth riders and shown world champion horses. He's been an American quarter horse judge since 1976, and in that capacity, he has judged 11 world championship shows for the AQHA, 15 national shows in many countries, and has lectured in numerous national and international judges' seminars. He's a past chairman of AQHA's Judges Committee, and is presently chairman of the AQHA Show Committee. In 2009, Dr. Hurd served as the chairman of the Horse Industry Leaders Committee for the celebration. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Jim Hurd.
We hear a lot about integrity and all of those things that we believe are important, and they are, and we're going to talk about it. But for me, the number one characteristic of a good judge is knowledge. Now, let's talk about great judges versus good judges. Great judges are courageous. They take the opportunity to make the right decision. I had a friend of mine judge the Colorado State Fair one time, and I watched him judge, and he always talked to me after the classes. There was a fabulous pleasure horse in that class, and he put him third. And, I mean, this is the horse that we'd all been looking for. And by the way, we are looking for the opportunity to do it right. We're looking for the good horse, and we're looking for the chance to do the things that you want us to do. And here was this horse that was different than what we'd been placing, and it was exactly what we've been told that we needed to be looking for. He was a natural mover. He was slow enough. He was quiet. He was soft. He met all the requirements, and he put him third. And he said, "What should I have done?" And I said, "You should have put him first and never looked back, because here was a chance for you to show courage and to make a change in our industry." And so we have to have the courage that when the good one is in the pen, we have to find it. And what happens if you're not a good enough horseman, you'll get caught up in trends. And so we have to resist the opportunity to do trends, and we have to know good from bad and make our placings based on that. Every one of you in this room has knowledge and understanding of our horse industry. Most people in our industry have that knowledge. If we're not willing to step up and make the decisions that we need to make to save our industry for a future generation, no one else is going to be able to do that. And I think the walking horse industry is proof we do not want the government controlling all of the decisions about what we get to bring into the pen, because they're about as effective as that as they are a lot of other things. And so we can fix this, and I applaud you as an organization for standing up and making a stand on behalf of the horse, because that's really what it's about. And that's really what it's about being a judge, is taking care of the horse. Add one other piece.
All right, this has got to be it right here.
I will real quickly.
Okay.
I think there's a couple of things about that. I grew up in the walking horse industry, and I was like Chris, and I went to the celebration. I thought, boy, this is a lot better. And I took somebody with me that watched 2 classes, and they said, I'm out of here. I'm not watching this again. And as an industry, if you want to sell horses to somebody other than just the people that have them now, you've got to address this issue of what does it look like to the general public. So thank you.
Boy, this is a gray area right here. Everybody has to decide whether this is going to be acceptable or do we keep right on fighting, you know. And that's just a feeling of what I sense around. Does it sound make sense to anybody else that's what we're saying, you know, is there may very well be a meeting spot here that could be acceptable, you know. Thank you.
When, like I stated earlier, when you're raised in a culture where soaring is an acceptable training technique, a little sore, a lot sore, you see nothing wrong with some of the things that go on. Some of those horses in the ring to some people look bad, but I've been around it since 1972, so they look good to me. They're a lot better than they used to be. Now, I'm not saying that we're perfect. I think we still have a long way to go. So, I mean, we need to keep working towards that goal. The problem with the industry is that we're not proactive, we're reactive. We wait till we're told what to do. Today could be the start of it. Today could be our chance to step up and do what we need to do.
I've said many times that if in 1970, if the walking horse industry had said, we will not soar another horse because this is not good for us, you'd have the second most popular breed in the world today, without question. And I think you could gain that back.
Speaking to us this morning from the thoroughbred racing industry is Michael Ziegler. Michael is the executive director of the National Thoroughbred Racing Association's Safety and Integrity Alliance. This is the thoroughbred racing industry's self-regulating organization formed in late 2008 to implement change at racetracks in America.
The benefits of groups like yours and ours sharing knowledge and best practices can do nothing but benefit the horse and those involved with the horse everywhere. Widespread use of anabolic steroids in racing was always the elephant in the room, but with Dutro's admission, the cat was out of the bag. The resulting fallout, particularly following the 2008 Kentucky Derby, from the media, the general public, our fans, Congress, and many members of our own industry questioned the sport's safety and integrity and seriously doubted its abilities to reform. To regain the public's trust, we needed action that was swift, bold, transparent, and authentic. Shortly thereafter, industry leaders quickly identified key reforms and policy changes. The needed changes were substantive. The industry had to address difficult issues like steroids, uniform drug and medication rules, penalties, and testing procedures, equine injury reporting, and aftercare for our retired athletes. Each of these issues on its own would be difficult to address, but piling them on top of each other was truly becoming a yeoman's task.
The National Walking Horse Association has been a most appreciated sponsor since our very first conference. The association is located right here in Kentucky and is a national alliance of people committed to preserving and fostering the natural abilities and welfare of the walking horse. Also, our sincere thanks to another very important sponsor of the Sound Horse Conference, the Animal Welfare Institute. Their generosity and participation has meant so much to the conference, and you'll be hearing from one of their principals next. I'm pleased to introduce Christine Sequenzia, who serves as a federal policy advisor to the Animal Welfare Institute in Washington, D.C. As a graduate of Texas A&M University, Christine majored in animal science and has successfully transitioned her passion for animals and political savvy into a career promoting legislation on Capitol Hill and across the nation. Prior to her current position, Christine served as staff to the U.S. House of Representatives Committee on Energy and Commerce and the office of U.S. Congressman Pete Sessions.
As Rick said, my name is Christine Sequenzia. I'm Federal Policy Advisor for the Animal Welfare Institute, which is just a fancy name for lobbyist. AWI sees the end of horse soaring as one of our primary issues, and our leadership is actively involved in making sure that this is ended very quickly. Since that time, AWI has worked diligently to speak with several members of Congress and committee chairs to secure an additional $400,000 in funding for the USDA's implementation of the Horse Protection Act. This would bring the program funding to $900,000. APHIS has agreed to develop a budget and staffing plan to phase in the resources needed to adequately oversee the horse protection program. So for those of you who haven't heard, the Sound Horse Conference of 2010 is dedicated to the memory of Bob Blackwell. Bob most recently served as the Vice President of Inspections for FOSH. And before he served as FOSH DQP in the Foxtrotters Association, was a professional farrier. Bob also was willing to assist anyone who was willing to listen and learn about the humane treatment of gaited horses, from talking with an exhibitor or a new owner or consulting the USDA. Charlotte, let me find your award, 2 seconds. Here we go. This award is presented to you on behalf of FOSH, Friends of Sound Horses. Let's pose for a photo. Bob was passionate about seeing the ending of horse soaring in his lifetime, and we are still working to see his dream come true in the years to come. I'd like to tell you a little bit more about Alyssa and her horse. You both represent the NWHA World Equestrian Games and their 2010 exhibition showing the positive attributes of walking horses in front of hundreds of thousands of the World Horse audience. Alyssa and Blue are remarkable not only for their high level of skill and achievement, but also for the example that they set for more humane treatment of horses in general and the Tennessee walking horses in particular. In the heavy shod world of walking horses, Blue is and always has been barefoot. Blues Care includes bi-weekly full-body massages, daily supplements, and magnetic therapy. I wish I could come to your house. That would be fantastic. He is turned out daily into pasture with his brothers. Rather than being cooped up in a stall all day like most show horses, he is allowed to be a real horse. Congratulations, Alyssa, and thank you for the entire NWHA demo team. This award is presented to you by Friends of Sound Horses.
Next, you're going to hear natural hoof care pioneer Jamie Jackson as he discusses the effects of performance and extreme shoeing, soaring practices, and common show horse protocols on hoof capsule integrity, equine biomechanics, foot soundness, and horse health. Jamie Jackson is a 35-year veteran hoof care professional, author, researcher, and noted expert on wild and domestic horses. Jackson is typically credited with having started the modern-day barefoot movement and has founded the Association for the Advancement of Natural Horse Care Practices and the Institute for the Study of Natural Horse Care Practices. We are very honored to have him with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jamie Jackson.
So I want to thank the sponsors and the organizers of this event for the opportunity to come and to talk about what I do and to discuss what are clearly inexcusable and outrageous and illegal practices against the Tennessee walking horse, other gaited horses, and horses generally that are subjected to extreme care practices. The barefoot hoof care movement has, in fact, arisen as a direct humanitarian response to such practices. In this little clip, I'd really like you to, if you would, just not focus on the feet at all, but on how the horse is moving and the rider, and because that's where we're going. And this young man is obviously very proud of what he's accomplished, what he's doing, and I'm sure he's worked hard and paid a bit of money to get the hooves the way he wants. Notice the position of the head and the bouncy seat, the tail, the hind legs, the front legs, and so forth. And that's that. And then I've gone ahead and picked another image from the show ring. And I've tried to my way of thinking, understanding the horse the way I do, to dissect it into various parts to try and understand and maybe explain what's going on. It's pretty simple, huh? Okay. And then in looking at the many images, I begin to know that the people who are running the cameras for these shows, taking photographs to sell these animals, are creating illusions, okay? And as I begin to read what some of the trainers and the onlookers and other people who do this, how they perceive the animal, I begin to realize that maybe they don't understand what it is exactly that's happening with the animal themselves. In fact, I think that's very much the case. But not only them, but probably the vast majority of the horse-using community, regardless of breed or equestrian practice. And when you're asking horses to do extreme things, they must be naturally collected in order to be sound, or we're opening up a Pandora's box of problems. In fact, I think it's one that is widespread across the horse-using community. And that's what I want to talk about, because I think that the shoeing practices, the riding style, soaring aside, exacerbate this condition, a syndrome, what I call, lurking in the background. And I think it's probably the #1 horse killer at large in the horse-using community today. We just don't recognize it for what it is. So we start here with the illusory axis. I just want to say that we'll call this the elevation of the forehand because it's lifting the whole horse up. It's like if you stood on some stairs or a table, it's going to lift the front end of the horse up and then correspondingly drop the lower end. And I'm sure you're all familiar with this, but I included it, the pads there. And you notice that they're angled in the back, yes. And there's one pulled off of a horse. And in this next image here, we'll notice that the stack is angled downward towards the front of the foot. You can see that, okay? And this is no accident that it's done this way. There's a rationale behind all of it. And you can then anchor various hoof conformations to this or to flat shoes. And here, problems from the horse's natural world standpoint, the foot then begins to play tricks on the horse's foot, and you begin to get what we call a run under, low heel run under, or run under heel syndrome, which is very pathological and harmful to the horse. When you do my work, what I do, which I've handled the apple core now for decades, then you see the devastation. This is what I deal with. I deal with the problems, not the glory in the showroom, but in the real, ugly, nasty problems in the back room. That's what I do. That's what I deal with. And I thought I'd throw this in showing the interior of the foot, of the stacking system with the nails and so on and so forth. But this may surprise some of you. And I wouldn't expect you to know this unless you were a hoofman like myself, who's been around for years and years and years, is that many of the techniques, I will call them, or methods, to inflict pain on the horse's foot to get him for the hoof to behave a particular way, did not come from this industry. These are known practices outside the industry, imported into it, with embellishments added. That's right. Things going under pads, things happening underneath pads, gouging holes, filling them with putty, reaching the dermal structures, causing pain. That's old hat. And I want to say that I trim a number of Tennessee walking horses that go barefoot. And they're in their natural state, they're incredibly enormous, powerful movers. It is something to see. I don't know why I go through all this trouble when lying there waiting for everybody is this incredible animal. I'm not seeing anything quite like it, to tell you the truth, in the horse world. They are incredible movers. And then the anklets put on there to aid in that process. So I just wrote here that the horse will, in a knee-jerk response to weight and pain, move his feet higher and faster and more forward with snap, whatever you want to call it. I would say here that the perpetrators of this craft, I would have to say everybody involved, the trainers, the riders, the breeders, the hoofmen. Don't get me wrong, but they deserve a degree of acknowledgement for their combined ingenuity in making this whole sorry system work. This is the paradox of it, okay? And unfortunately, it's to the detriment of the horse. But a lot has gone into this. I mean, if you're a farrier, my God, you know, and trying to drive 7-inch nails in the earlier some systems is no easy feat. Dr. Chris Pollitt, the Australian Laminitis Research Unit, has given the world some wonderful research that feeding horses rich diets will cause their hooves to come off. Okay? The science is there. Oh, we'll also see grooves emerging in the walls. This is a Tennessee Walker here. and a hind foot. These happen we're talking about a system breaking down and giving off signals to us. Wake up! Wake up! It's failing. In the back, another walking horse, begin to close up in the back. It's shutting down. It says, stay the hell out of here. Can't take it anymore. We've got names for that, like hoof contraction, heel contraction. Heck with those words. Just understand what's happening. The system is in full revolt. Then the clubfoot, key signature of this overall body breakdown. A distinct elevation, the angle. If you know how to measure the angle of the foot, if you know what an angle is. So when I'm on guard for trouble, we have gauges for this purpose. If there's a sudden change in the angle of one of the front feet, typically on the long side, then we know where it's coming from. It's coming from the overall imbalance. So if we keep the hoof in a laminating state, here where the wall is now moving forward of the sole, okay, then we can move out the shoe further. And suddenly we have a bigger shoe on what should be a smaller foot. Very clever. This is done. Collectively, the many unnatural forces at work in the extreme shod and ridden horse cause great suffering and can lead to serious breakdown. When these forces arise from riding that is called a crooked horse, two extremes, damages to the horse can occur anywhere across his musculature. I classify them all under the heading, as I stand before you, navicular syndrome. We tend to treat these things in isolation, but in fact there are a class of breakdowns all following from riding horses that are not straight. So I define navicular syndrome this way. Any serious, debilitating upper body trauma caused by riding a crooked horse to extremes in violation of his natural gaits.
Russell Gaspar is a partner in Cohen Moore. He has worked on legal issues involving the Horse Protection Act since 1976. Joyce Wang, she is also an associate in the Silicon Valley office of Latham & Watkins LLP, a full-service international law firm with over 2,000 attorneys in 30 offices around the world.
Everybody involved in these issues, no matter what your position is, you need to know that you will have an opportunity to comment. If you feel strongly about the proposed rule, one way or another, it's good, it's bad, it's indifferent, it doesn't go far enough, it goes too far, there needs to be a different kind of rule to identify a problem. You have the right to participate in the rulemaking process. And if you're concerned about resolving these issues, I'd suggest that maybe you have an obligation to participate.
Which they've already done. They've requested a $400,000 increase for the 2011 fiscal year. So we'll see if that's approved, which would bring the total HPP budget up to $900,000.
We are going to save all of the questions and answers till the end and move right ahead with Lori Northrup. Of course, everybody knows Lori. She serves as president of FOSH, Friends of Sound Horses, Inc., the national nonprofit organization focused on encouraging humane training and exhibiting of gaited horses and actively working to end soring. Lori joined FOSH in 2003, determined to make a difference after reading the life-changing book From the Horse's Mouth by Eugene Davis. Involved as an entrepreneur for more than 35 years, Lori has a finance degree and an MBA and has started over 15 businesses with her husband, Bill. They share their time between Arizona and New York with a collection of Tennessee walking horses, gaited mules, and other long ears. Lori is a Pirelli professional instructor and is dedicated to making the world a better place for horses and people. Ladies and gentlemen, Lori Northrup.
And this is really going to be a progress report because you've heard me report on this over the last couple years, and I want to tell you what's happened. And a lot has happened. I started on this information quest 7 years ago in 2003. And I really have a history to show you on how that information trail was built. I'm going to show you the current availability of information, how it's been used, examples of actions that have happened from the information, and some future ideas. When I started on this information quest after reading that life-changing book, it was 2003, and this is what I found. There's now sources of information available that I'm going to cover. They are private websites, they are government websites, they are horse industry organization websites, and through Freedom of Information Act requests. Not surprisingly, they found that the USDA's veterinary medical officers find 12 to 30 times more violations than when the DQPs are doing the job themselves. You've heard this alluded to a lot today, and you've heard it alluded to in past years. The data still remains the facts. They also did a what-if analysis. What if the USDA was able to inspect every single Tennessee walking horse and gaited show? How many violations might be found? And their data analysis suggested that over the last 3 years it could have been over 62,000 violations. The analysis also shows a lot about repeat offenders. As Joyce mentioned to you, out of our 9,000 violation database, half of those listings belong to repeat offenders. This to me is really sad news. It shows that with all the progress that we're making, all the efforts that are being made, the core offenders are not being affected. And out of those repeat offenders, it's 1,100 people. Their names show up over and over and over again. And you say, well, maybe back in the last decade they weren't getting the message. This data is exactly the same for every year over the last 5 years. Half the people are repeat offenders. So what about the future? There are various groups working together on new concepts of how to rejuvenate or save or promote this breed and this industry. But we will be establishing a series of conference calls to begin discussing the what next for the future. And anyone that's interested in joining in on these informational conference calls, please get in touch with me.
Gary was awarded the National Walking Horse Association's Phoenix Award Certificate of Merit in recognition of his sound training practices and rehabilitations of abused Tennessee walking horses in 2001, the first year this award was granted. Gary's latest book, Training the Gaited Horse from the Trail to the Rail, is already the best-selling gaited horse book in America. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Gary Lane.
Wow. Thank you. You know, one of my biggest pet peeves is that I'd hear that we're going backwards. We've lost our horse. He's gone. Let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. He's getting better. He's going to be NCAA Division I just as soon as we get some cancer removed from the system. He's coming. He's coming back with a vengeance. So hang on to your great brood mares. Don't lose them. So I've got to talk to a lot of veterinarians that have been in and close to. And we need to get Dr. Ron DeHaven down here to hear him talk sometime at the Sound Horse Conference and hear his stories. And he's got a great account. Hear some of the veterinarians and some of the things that happen to them on the top of the food chain that you don't know that the USDA has to fight that's going on. But that doesn't relieve the burden and the responsibility of the USDA to give us fair and adequate guidance and leadership that we need so desperately to protect our horse.
All right, first you're going to hear from Dan Summerell, and then after him, Dr. Tracy Turner. Let me tell you a little bit about Dan. Dan has helped thousands of people worldwide solve both physical and behavioral problems in their horses. Strange for someone who was almost 42 years old when he got his first horse. At 43, his purchase of an out-of-control stallion forced this beginner on a quest into the world of horses and changed his life forever.
Why are we doing this? You know, Mr. Lang was very good in talking about, with his passion, what we're doing to the horses. Well, I think we all agree it's a horrible thing. Why are we having to talk about this? Well, if we don't talk about it, it ain't going to go away.
Thank you very much, Dan. All right, we're going to jump right ahead to Dr. Tracy Turner, whose primary area of research is focused on equine lameness with particular interest in poor performance, thermography, and equine podiatry. Let's hear it for Dr. Tracy Turner.
part of my area of expertise being with lameness and the thermography. You know, there's two conclusions you can come from this. Wow, the industry's really horrible. They're all no abnormal. Okay, that's not a conclusion. Two, what's going on? You know, I mean, 15 people showed up, and they're not going to show up having treated their horses. Your advice to us was that do what's right for the horse, and everything else is okay. All right, cool. So we wrote down and put down our opinions. And our opinions went into how can you eliminate this thing? So we all brainstormed how you do it, how you get together. One of the things that came down, I'm sorry, you can't have 14 HIOs. You can have one. Somebody's got to step up to the plate and run the show. You can have the government do it, the USDA, and I agree with Gary and his passion is that USDA's responsibility, but no, Gary, I own the government. And we just proved that last Tuesday, that we own the government, and we're going to tell them, and each one of you can do that, write letters, do what you need, get on the phone, irritate your congresspeople. I'm really good at irritating my congresspeople, especially the ones I don't like. But tell them what you think. I mean, they're there making decisions, and they got other people but they'll do what their constituents want, and they've just gotten a real strong message that you better listen to your constituents. So get on the phone, get on the email, get on the letters, and tell your congressman what you think.
All right. Winky Groover is a professional Tennessee walking horse trainer who trains both performance horses for shows and pleasure horses for shows and trails. Winky owns and operates Groover Stables at Saddlecrest Farms in Shelbyville, Tennessee. He specializes in starting and developing young horses for the show ring and pleasure riding.
During my life, I've done about everything wrong that one could do as a trainer and as a person. Yes, I've had violations from the USDA and HIOs, and I have served suspensions for those acts. I'm sorry for the hurt I've caused horses as a trainer, and I'm sorry for the grief that I've caused family members, customers, and friends as a person. I have a past I'm not proud of, but with the help of many, I've made a decision to change my life and my training techniques. I'm not trying to bring religion into this topic, but I am a man of faith, and the decision to accept Christ as my Savior has been the primary source of inspiration for me to work toward becoming a better person and a better trainer. Also, many of you in this room have helped directly or indirectly, and I want to thank you for contributing to the realization for the need for change and reform that is taking place within our industry. Perhaps we owe the most gratitude to the AAEP Task Force Committee. I especially want to thank those vets that not only had the perception and insight to summarize our problems, but also to recommend constructive solutions that are bringing change and putting an end to the practice of soaring. I'm one of those people that have to see it, do it, try it, to understand it and believe it. I do enjoy learning and learn something new every day of my life. My wife and I enrolled in a thermography clinic, and after going through a clinic conducted by Dr. Turner and others, we received our certification for equine thermography. I learned many things about the basics of a horse at this clinic. Everything from the anatomy to how a horse lands his feet on the ground and how this affects the horse, and the resulting thermographic images were fascinating. As we work toward success in our show horse industry, we all need to be mindful of ways to positively impact change, as well as re-educate trainers, owners, spectators, and all segments of our industry. I would appreciate any of your ideas or suggestions that might help us in this regard. Please feel free to contact me anytime. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I want to thank Lori and her committee for inviting me. And all this was written prior to me being here. I would like to add that I was extremely nervous about coming, and I really appreciate y'all making me feel welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Winky. I'm pleased to again introduce Keith Dane, the Director of Equine Protection for the Humane Society of the United States. Keith oversees the domestic horse welfare programs for the nation's largest animal welfare organization. Those efforts include a nationwide campaign to end the slaughter of America's horses in the United States and abroad. Dane also directs programs for horse owner education, ending equine cruelty and neglect, securing the welfare of horses used in sport, work, and racing, and rehoming of America's at-risk and homeless horses.
Unlike some horse show industry groups, such as show jumping and eventing and even horse racing, some of which the Humane Society and other members of the humane community have worked with, have taken to task, have applied pressure to, a lot of them get it. They realize that they have a problem and that they need to address it. There's a welfare challenge that threatens their very existence as a sport, as a breed, as an industry. And they've embraced that need for change. Unfortunately, the walking horse industry has for decades, by and large, been in denial that there is a problem. They've used statistics to say that it doesn't exist anymore. It's a thing of the past, or it's just that rogue backyard amateur trainer. That has led to a refusal to reform. As one of the reports said, you know, there's this, it's us against the man, us against the feds, us against the government. We're not going to change. We're going to show them. We're going to work our way around regulations and enforcement, which has led to a flagrant disregard of federal law and those who are challenged with enforcing it. We should support the changes that the USDA proposes in the regs with our input to the DQP program, because I think if we don't change the way that this inspection scheme is running, we're never going to get any results. We need to support increases in USDA funding, and again, there have been quarters of the industry in the past that have opposed that. This time around, I don't think there were any, but I think we should all be going to our congressmen and saying, give them more money. They need to get to more shows. They can do a lot more with more money. It's not the only thing they can do. It's not the only thing they need. They need support to do more with the money they have, but more money will get more VMOs to more shows. And we need to support the changes that were put in the petition that Joyce Wang, the attorney that was here earlier, asked for. They're simple, basic, common sense changes that the Humane Society and several other groups, ASPCA, American Horse Protection, were asking for. Senator Tidings wanted us to do more in that petition, and we said, this is a good start, and he agreed to sign on. I said, let's get to work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Keith. Well, we have come to the end of an incredible 2 days, and I would just like to thank all of our speakers, our sponsors, our volunteers, and especially all of you for having come and been part of this. So safe travels, and as you go out there, please keep the welfare of the horse firmly in mind. Thank you very much.